समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
आप समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
What exactly is happening between India and Pakistan amid murmurs of an Operation Sindoor 2.0? Remember, India has officially not ended Operation Sindoor 1.0 to begin with. Has come a phase of soaring tensions. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh warned Pakistan after there was clear evidence of military infrastructure expansion in the areas near Sir Creek. Thereafter came the Indian Army Chief's statement, a fierce warning about possibly erasing Pakistan from the map, that this time there would be no restraint if Pakistan continued its policy of fomenting terrorism and then using it against India. Now has come an unhinged threat from Pakistan. First, an all-cap statement clearly showing how rattled it is, and now a statement from Pakistan's defense minister threatening to bury India under the wreckage of its own fighter jets. Something has rattled Pakistan, and something significant is happening in the messaging from India to Pakistan, because on the same day and in the same week, we've seen big statements from the defense minister, the army chief, and the air chief. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo Story. To understand the latest phase of soaring tensions between India and Pakistan, we'll be talking to three top experts in a moment from now. India's army chief made one of his strongest statements in recent memory when he warned that Pakistan this time could even be erased from the map if it continued to use terrorism against India. India's defense minister has also warned Pakistan, Rajnath Singh making a strong statement in response to Pakistan's reported military infrastructure expansion in the areas near Sir Creek. Will Sir Creek be the new battleground between India and Pakistan? Remember, Operation Sindoor is not yet over. It is merely on pause, but there is already murmurs of an Operation Sindoor 2.0. Pakistan has responded, showing that it is rattled. First came an all-cap statement from Pakistan's ISPR, and then came a bizarre unhinged statement, not for the first time, from Pakistan's Defence Minister Khawaja Asif, this time threatening to bury India under the wreckage of our own planes. India's messaging is what we're interested in, not Pakistan's crazy threats. And to understand India's messaging, I want to welcome three very distinguished guests today on the program. We're joined by veteran diplomat Ambassador Bashwati Mukherjee. You heard her on the weekend on our platform talking about how she believed that Operation Sindoor 2.0 was a reality that we should all brace ourselves for, even anticipate, given Pakistan's record, given Pakistan's behavior on terrorism. We're also joined by Gen Satish Dua, former General Officer Commanding of the 15th Corps, the man who was in the seat when the first surgical strikes took place after the Uri terror attacks. And also joining us is somebody who has been on the ground in the Kashmir Valley as the Corps Commander of the 15th Corps, who has seen action up close and personal, has also been Brigade Commander in Uri. So we have a very, very distinguished panel. And to put this into context, I want to replay the statement by the Army Chief, because that's what Pakistan is reacting to. And it's important to remind all of us what the Army Chief said. So here's a little snippet. Take a look.
इस बार भारत देश पूरी तैयारी के साथ है और इस बार वो संयम नहीं रखेगा जो सिंदूर 1.0 में हमने संयम रखा। इस बार हम आगे की कार्रवाई करेंगे और कुछ ऐसी कार्रवाई करेंगे कि हो सकता है पाकिस्तान को सोचना पड़े कि उसे इतिहास में भूगोल में रहना है कि नहीं रहना है। अगर उसे भूगोल में अपनी जगह बनानी है तो उसके लिए उसे जो स्टेट स्पॉन्सर टेररिज्म जिसको हम बोलते हैं, यानी कि उसका देश जो टेररिज्म को स्पॉन्सर कर रहा है उसे रोकना पड़ेगा। तो आप अपनी पूरी तैयारी करके रखिए और अगर परवरदिगार चाहेंगे, भगवान चाहेंगे, वाहिगुरु चाहेंगे तो बहुत जल्दी ही आपको मौका मिलेगा। उसके लिए ऑल द बेस्ट। जय हिंद।
Okay, I want to get to generals first. General Hasnain, I'll start with you. There is one aspect of morale boosting. You keep your troops in a state of ever readiness for war. I think it was CDS General Chauhan who said that if you want peace, you have to be always prepared for war. But the army chief's statement was very specific, it was very fierce, it coincided with the defense minister's warning and the air chief's sort of chronicling of the losses to Pakistan in Operation Sindhu. It cannot be a coincidence. In fact, as Ambassador Mukherjee was pointing out earlier on our program, she said those statements could not have been made by either military chief without synchronicity with the political establishment. How did you read the army chief's message, and how do you read the subsequent first all caps ISPR statement, very ungainly, inelegant, not for the first time, but secondly Khawaja Asif's new threat, this time using really unhinged language, not surprising, but something's going on. How do you read it?
Thank you, Barkha. Thank you for inviting me for the program. I entirely agree with the Ambassador Bashwati ji. Synchronicity, yes, absolutely. That's the word, the correct word you used for that. Just viewing General Dwivedi here, you could make it out very clearly. This was a deliberate statement. There was no spontaneity in this. It was a deliberate statement and made for the occasion. Let's take a slight backdrop to this. For far too long in India have we accused our armed forces, our bureaucratic establishment, our complete security setup of not being sensitive to narrative building. We have always said, oh, we are very good in war fighting, we are very good in shooting from the hip, from the AK-47. But when it comes to the word, in the spoken word, the storytelling part of it, we are always a little reticent. I think this lesson has been learned reasonably well. I do think that when the attack took place on 9th of May 2024, on the day when Mr. Modi was being sworn in, that was the original Pahalgam actually supposed to be happening. Even then, we did not really make efforts to explain to the world or explain to the rest of the country as to what could potentially happen and what was the intention which Pakistan was actually working with. If you remember, just to remind our viewers, 9 people were killed in that particular bus accident when it was fired upon. There could have been 25 people or 28 people killed, more than the number in Pahalgam, right? Now, I remember that we did not do very much. Now, with all these lessons learned, I think we are doing a good job of telling the story, sending out the warnings, speaking the truth, telling the other side, warning them and telling the world. Now, there's again a backdrop to this. The situation which is there in Pakistan is quite obvious. From a geopolitical angle, American support, sudden agreement with Saudi Arabia, Turkish support, a kind of a transactional support from Iran. The Chinese support is anyway guaranteed. All this has made Pakistan extremely confident of itself, right? What we know about Pakistan is that...
I'm sorry I'm interrupting, but despite the turmoil in Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir?
Yeah, I'll come to that. Okay. Right? Yeah. This is geopolitically, I said, making themselves, they seem to be very confident of themselves. Secondly, psychologically, Pakistan is always doing something. If anyone wants to look at the Pakistan leadership, it's a clear given that they never accept that they lost the war of 65. They say September the 6th was Victory Day. They even go to the extent of saying we never lost 71. 71 was a different story in Bangladesh. Was a different story on the Western Front, where of course India never had any intent to do anything there. But this is the narrative they try and build up. They talk even about Kargil and say, actually we withdrew under pressure from President Clinton. Now all this is a build-up. Now I'm glad that the Indian side is actually responding very, very effectively to that. Mr. Rajnath's going to Bhuj for Dasera, doing Shastra Puja with the troops and eating a Bada Khana was a tremendous message. I think a very good message giving done there. Primarily to say that from Siachen, where we've got our gaze and focus, right till Sar Creek near Bhuj, we have got the entire western border under our focus and under our gaze. Don't think that you can start building up some infrastructure inside on the other side of the circuit, and you can start looking at some kind of a potential hybrid warfare threats against us in this area. This is the kind of projection that we are doing. And along with the visit of the Raksha Mantri, you immediately found the air chief's statement, then you found the army chief's statement, obviously designed to send home a message, because the perception is clear. Pakistan, under the current conditions, may wish to test the waters and see how far is this policy, how far is this support from the United States actually true. If so, how long, how effectively will Mr. Trump back them in the event of a something like Pahalgam tomorrow? We will take this discussion forward.
Okay, so I must ask you one more question before I go to General Dua and to Ambassador Mukherjee. When you say this is effective messaging from India, Pakistan's in a bit of a smug phase, an overconfident phase. In any case, this is a country that doesn't even accept defeat when it's staring them in the face. You have been for long saying, General Hasnain, be ready, they will continue to use terrorism. And clearly the army chief is also expecting and preparing for that. That was my reading.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. What the army chief also believes, that exactly is right. Because they know. You see, Pakistan knows that, or their perception and appreciation is that over the nuclear overhang, they seem to be very confident that all that in terms of response will come from India will be a couple of missile strikes, and that's about all. The conventional war for territorial gains, etc., getting on to POK is unlikely to happen. Secondly, of course, I did miss out in my last intervention that particular aspect which you had dwelt upon about the internal turbulence inside Pakistan. POK is burning, there is no doubt about it. There's problem in Balochistan, there's problem in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. As we are aware, even the Pakistan army has even gone to the extent of using artillery and gunships in that area. So that itself also is a particular reason why Pakistan may wish to project itself in a different direction, take away attention from its internal issues and turbulence which is building up there. So keeping all this aspect in mind, they think that carrying out a action against India, a terrorist-based action in India, is all that it will get is a typical response which has been there so far. The surgical strikes, the Balakot strike, and subsequently the Operation Sindhu. Their perception perhaps is that they can handle it. I think the army chief's message is very clear. Don't think that Sindhu or a limited war option is the only option that India is looking at. If push comes to shove, then we are prepared to go to an all-out conventional war, and if it even has to go nuclear, so be it.
Let's open this up. Let me bring in General Dua into this and then come to the diplomatic dimension. General Dua, the messaging, the narrative that the military is doing could not be without some sort of discussion internally with the political establishment. What are you reading in the tea leaves, as it were? Could we unmute General Dua? Yeah, go ahead, sir.
I'm heard now.
Yeah.
Thank you. So thank you, Barkha, for having me on the show. Diving straight in, let me first talk about a couple of statements which I won't say we've forgotten, but I just need to bring them out once again. During Operation Sindhu, or just after Operation Sindhu, Prime Minister made a statement saying an act of terror henceforth is an act of war. It was during Sindhu or just after Operation Sindhu. And the Defence Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, made a statement which said, when we see the terrorist gathering or any such preparations being made by them, we will not wait for the henceforth. We will not wait for them to attack. We reserve the right to defend ourselves in any which way we can, implying thereby that next time we see a thing like this, we might even take a preemptive strike, right? And also the fact that we all know, we talk about it, that Operation Sindhu is on a pause. It's on a pause. It hasn't stopped. Now, I personally do not would not like to set much currency by store to about Operation Sindhu 2.0. Actually, Operation Sindhu is still on, so we don't have to talk
Correct.
about. No military or defense ministry or a government statement talks has spoken even now. It's only the media which talks about Operation Sindhu 2.0. For us, Operation Sindhu is still on. I go back to Defence Minister's statement, which said we reserve our right to strike when we think that they're preparing to go against us. Having said this, uh, now these statements that, uh, just like General Hasnain said, Pakistan is doing a real tightrope walk between US, China, their relationship with Iran. Recently, they've signed a pact with Somalia. They're getting into a defense agreement with Somalia on the other side of Gulf of Aden. So, when they're doing all this, they also perhaps want to test water. They want to see where they stand. And this statement that comes after run of Kutch is ambiguous from the Indian side, which says, like we all discussed it, Army Chief statement is very strong. The Air Chief has given a correct statement, and the Defense Minister has made a very official statement. To which Pakistan uh, it is rattled because it knows for all the bluster, for all the facts, eventually they will be standing alone when it comes to it. When push comes to shove, they'll be standing alone. And there, we've always had the better of them. Now, when it was 2016, the Uri surgical strike, it was something that came on them unexpectedly. No one knew. Even we, I mean, I was the corps commander, but otherwise in the country, no one knew about this. And it was only when it was announced. When Pulwama happened, uh, Barkha, I had a couple of shows in your studios. Those were the days before COVID. We used to go to the studios and not the Zoom links mostly. And we all were expecting something might happen, but we didn't know what. After Pahalgam, I remember talking to in one of the channels, and I said, this time round, Prime Minister has lost surprise. As far as we military men are concerned, surprise was lost because Prime Minister announced in that speech in Bihar that we will go after them and we will have to go after their perpetrators. We will give them a befitting response. And then after a few days, Operation Sindhu happened. Going forward, and I'll end with this. Now, the defense minister is giving a statement with this turn of Kutch thing, with this trouble brewing here, and a very strong statement going out from our defense minister and the army and army chief, and then also the air force chief taking a statement that we are not only prepared, and I'm going back, harking back to the statement for the second time, we might do something preemptive and it may not be limited like Operation Sindhu. And I think that's a very correct stand for India to take. I just trace the journey, how we came out of being a soft state
Sure.
to a hard response and now to a proactive response.
So I want to bring in Ambassador Mukherjee now. You know, one of the things that Rajnath Singh said when he was in Bhuj, he said the road to Karachi passes through this area. And of course, India seems to have reacted. I don't know. General Dua says it's preemptive. Maybe it is messaging because of this sort of new coziness with Trump, the pact with Saudi Arabia. But there also seems to be some sort of response to what Pakistan is trying to do near Sir Creek. And therefore, Rajnath Singh in Bhuj sending out that message from sort of the borderlines of Gujarat. My question to you is, do you believe that Pakistan will stand all alone? Or do you believe that we still don't know where China will weigh in after what we saw in Sindhu? We don't know what's up with Trump. There is now this pact with the Saudis. The opposition is making much of the fact that Russia has sold engines to Pakistan for integration into the JF-17. The government has sort of poo-pooed those concerns, but I don't know how you see all of this. You know, do you feel that Pakistan has briefly only, got a new sort of seat at the table, and that's why they're feeling emboldened, and maybe that's what India is trying to preempt? That don't get any funny ideas, don't get any crazy ideas.
I think that Pakistan is alone. I agree with my co-panelists, except that there is a country fighting a proxy war through them with us, and that's China. So in Op Sindhu, for instance, what they used was Chinese intelligence. What they used was Chinese fighter aircraft, drones, etc. But beyond a certain limit, China will not go further because China has interest in some kind of stability in this area. They will not cross any red lines beyond what they think might seriously endanger the new rapprochement between India and China. As far as Pakistan is concerned, their ridiculous so-called nuclear umbrella, which they have offered to the Saudis and then to other Muslim countries, they have actually backtracked in their own parliament. In their own parliament, first they said that they don't recognize Israel, they will not recognize Israel. Then they said that, we have not committed to anything, etc. Why are they doing this? A, because of domestic pressure within Pakistan, and secondly, they must be reacting to Chinese pressure because China will not allow its proxy satellite state to become a proxy satellite state of the United States. Even Field Marshal thinks that Pakistan is for sale and therefore goes with a tray of rare minerals as if you're selling gulab jamun and laddu before Diwali. This is the most ridiculous. It is an insult to the people of Pakistan. What he did. Now he has backtracked even on that because he was talking about giving a port in the Arabian Sea. Now they are saying these are only discussions taking place. As far as President Trump is concerned, Barkha, he has enough people to tell him that it beyond a point it is counterproductive for United States to completely alienate India. And it is a fact in this week's Economist, Barkha, the leading article on page 20 about Trump versus India, it points out that when Durga Puja was celebrated in Bengal and Bihar, I don't know if you've seen it, I'll be happy to send you, the Mahisasur's head was that of Trump all over Bihar and Bengal. That shows how much Trump has destroyed the people to people relationship with India, how much support the Americans had among the people, that you have in the eastern part of India, the Mahisasur being Trump and being killed by the goddess. That shows that most Indians across India believe that Trump has actually overtaken even Pakistan in the unpopularity poll. He's right on top of the unpopularity poll. Shehbaz Sharif is very poor second below, much below him. So, secondly, you were talking about Pakistan not accepting reality. What could be more gross, Barkha, than for the Pakistanis to take home the Asian Cup and pretend that they have won it? They are actually trying to pretend that they won a match that they lost to India, and they are refusing to give back the Asian Cup. So a country that cannot even accept a defeat in a cricket match, how do you expect them to accept defeat in war? As far as Operation 2.0, I call it, because Operation Sindoor 1.0 has not paused, it is in suspended animation. When it will be taken up, you can call it continuation of Operation Sindoor 1.0. I would prefer to call it 2.0 because there is a new war strategy that our armed forces and our Prime Minister worked out. That war strategy after Operation Sindoor was that India will be free to judge the next act of terrorism on part of Pakistan as an act of war or not. At that point, if you recall, Barkha, there were questions raised, how are we going to judge? That would be left to the CCS and to Prime Minister. But if they feel that an act of terrorism is unacceptable because of the number of victims, etc., we are free to resume Sindoor 1.0, or you want to call it 2.0, it makes no difference. But this one will go much further. And the reason why Rajnath Singh said that the road to Karachi is through Sir Creek is to give a clear, very clear messaging to the Pakistani side that please don't forget that in Operation Sindoor, we reached till Islamabad and Lahore. So what is stopping us from reaching Karachi? Nothing. And as far as the Indian Navy is concerned, it is fully prepared, like the Air Force and the Army. So they can talk as they like. In my opinion, Barkha, this newfound bonhomie with Trump and the American administration is not going to last for long because they are under much stronger pressure from China to back off from this romance. So I would say actually each time they make one statement which is pro-American, then they go back to Pakistan and they backtrack and they make a statement which is quite different from what they made earlier, and that is clearly under Chinese pressure. And finally, I would say that in Operation Sindhu 2.0, we would have to accept the fact that China will continue to supply them with weapons. But on the other hand, I would say that because of the new emerging unsettled global order, they beyond a certain point, they will not cross the red line with India because they regard India as a very important tool for their economic recovery. They want the Indian market. So beyond a point, they will not do it. They will continue with the process of rapprochement because they believe that that is their way to become powerhouse number one and get the Americans down. Welcome.
Thank you, Ambassador. I think the operative part leaping out from that, General Hasnain, is one, a new war strategy, and two, that this time we will go much further. I would want you to place in perspective, beyond messaging, what exactly is, without giving away anything sensitive, what exactly do you think the military would be concerned about right now, looking out for, where would its attention be?
See, Barkha, I think it would be a misnomer to think that even in the past, even at the time of the surgical strikes or at the time of Balakot, I think it would be a misnomer to think that the Indian Army or the Indian Armed Forces were not prepared for full spectrum. Because when an organization, when an armed set of armed forces start looking at options, they look at it comprehensively. And then they decide the outcomes which they are looking for and the limits to which they wish to go for the moment. And then they choose the option. That's the option they chose in the surgical strikes, that's the option they chose at Balakot, and that's the option they chose in Operation Sindhu 1.0. Now, when it comes to 2.0, we may not go instinctively in taking an initiative unless something very, very awkward builds up in the area of Sar Creek and Bhuj. But if a terrorist act has to happen once again on us, I can assure you it will be definitely many notches above what happened in Operation Sindhu 1.0. And we can, of course, discuss that and cover it all, but we understand from general knowledge where that spectrum lies. It goes right to the top. I mean, we are prepared for the final. So, at one stage, if you remember General Malik's very famous statement, we'll fight with what we have. So it's not that you're waiting for something to happen. You're waiting for an optimum moment. You're waiting for an optimum preparedness. You fight with what you have, right? And the moment you go in, obviously your plan is the first casualty of whatever operation you wish to do. It escalates. It goes far beyond. So I think the Indian Army or the Indian Armed Forces have war-gamed well. I'm aware that there has been a high degree of wargaming which is going on even at the moment. There are people from the veteran community who have also participated in many places. We have even sort of been involved. I mean, after all, it's an all-of-government approach. It's a comprehensive, it's a national strategy which is being worked out. Why not bring all experience to the fore? So I think we are prepared for the last mile, whatever has to be done. Obviously, we'll choose our options carefully, make sure that we have our control over the escalatory ladder. We're not going to just go berserk from moment one, but I think the full spectrum is very much on the cards, and that is something that we should be prepared for.
That's a big statement, General Dua, and I think Ambassador Mukherjee clarified that, you can call it a continuation of Operation Sindoor as it exists, just lifting the pause button, or you can call it Operation 2.0. The nomenclature is subjective. But do you agree with this, that there is a sort of preparedness for the next round of conflict? Of course, you always have to be prepared. But you see, Pakistan either understands that this time the reaction from India will be much more fierce and therefore doesn't do anything to sort of provoke that reaction, or Pakistan, as Ambassador Mukherjee said, with its delusions of grandeur, with its almost sort of, muscle memory type reflexive insecurity and hatred for India, does something crazy. And we in our wargaming may think that and therefore are preparing for it. Gen Ata Dua, please unmute yourself, so I can't hear you.
Sorry. Normally anyway. So, Indian armed forces are always, not only always prepared, we are continuously upgrading our preparedness levels, in touch with the contemporary realities, or also not synchronicity, I say in synergy with the multi-dimension warfare or the multi-domain operations that are at play nowadays. So we that's a continuous process. That's what we do in peacetime. But having said that, uh, whether Pakistan will do something now or not, especially at the back of this newfound trust that they found, or newfound backing, if I would use the word, they found from the US. Uh, it's with some improvement of relations with Iran. Uh, they've been emboldened to make a pact with Somalia. Now, they are. I think that they are making all these uh, agreements, alliances, and alignments. All right, but I will stick out my neck to hazard a guess that at the present moment, I don't think Pakistan is in a position to initiate something which would provoke India to retaliate. Because if we retaliate, we will always retaliate. My guess is we will retaliate far more strongly than we did the last time. If you take 2016, 2019, and 2025, every time it has been a step up. So, having said that, they need to make statements for domestic audience. They made these arrangements and alignments with other countries. But for the Pakistan Army chief at the present moment, he has it pretty because he has made good alliances with other countries. He is not in the front line of fire, so to speak, while he controls the power. He has prime ministers and a defense minister to give out statements. You will not be able to find any statement by Pakistan Army chief so far. So he would not like to stir the hornet's nest. Is my guess, and I don't think we likely to see anything in the near future very soon. But as far as India is concerned, we are prepared at every level, whether it's political, diplomatic, and of course military. We are ready, we are prepared, and we are continuously upgrading our levels of preparedness.
I think General Hasnain wants to respond to you before I give Ambassador Mukherjee a kind of closing remark. Yeah.
Thank you. A very, very brief intervention. While fully agreeing with General Satish Dua, I'm tempted to go back to that very famous thing of Kargil. No sense of rationalism ever dictated that Pakistan would do what it did in Kargil.
Yeah.
What we need to attach to Pakistan when studying Pakistan from an intelligence angle always is the element of irrationality.
Yeah.
And that is that they tend to overbelieve themselves, and they have a huge sense of delusionary confidence, which takes them into initiation, or they do not ever know how to get out of it or how to terminate it. That's the temptation which I am always afraid of.
How do you war game an essentially irrational entity is something I want both generals to think about as we begin to. Yeah, I will take final comments. I'll start with Ambassador Mukherjee. I want you to bring in the nuclear question. It's the issue with which Pakistan runs to the Western world every time there is it provokes a military reaction from India. You have argued that this time, if there is a military conflict, Pakistan's nuclear assets should be, I don't know if they will be, but should be fair game, and you have argued for changing the no first use, or at least reviewing it. I want you to talk about that, and I want both generals to respond to it.
Well, as I said earlier, Pakistan has always tried to use nuclear blackmail, but when there is a conflict, it's always been conventional so far. The point here is that I agree that since it's an irrational power and they're talking of circuitry, is that a diversion? because they had earlier said that next time they're going to attack India from India's eastern side. So we have to be prepared on all sides. That's the first issue. Secondly, I firmly believe that in Operation Sindoor 2.0 or continuation, we must finish the unfinished of Operation Sindoor 1, which is we need to take out Pakistan's nuclear assets. If we don't take out Pakistan's nuclear assets, they will continue to pretend that they can bury us under the weight of our aircraft or whatever it is. When they have no nuclear assets, or their nuclear assets are buried deep underground and would take them a long time to dig them out, that is when we can legitimately say that we have defanged our enemy. And secondly, in Operation 2.0, as I call it, we need to reflect carefully, is this also a good occasion for two things? A, to secure our chicken's neck, and B, to take back POJK, which is Indian territory with Indian people. It's always belonged to India. There's a parliament resolution on that matter. Is this a right time? Because everybody knows that in POJK, the people are fed up with the corruption and being treated the way they are. They don't have an elected legislature, and they can see for themselves the huge amount of development happening in Jammu and Kashmir on our side of the border. So these are issues we need to think of. And I would also like to say that when we said that the road to Karachi is through Sir Creek, we said it for a reason. We wanted to indicate, because they have been threatening that they will take out our refineries. This is something we are fully aware of. We want to explain to them, before they take any refinery of ours out, we will also take out their refineries. We know exactly where they are. We know what to do. That's why we have war games, and we know in how much time we can take out those refineries which are vital to us and which are on the Karachi side. They say they're going to attack us from the east. We are fully prepared. I don't know how they think they can attack us from the east, but if they attack us from the east, that's when we go in and we secure chicken's neck, something that we should have done in 1971. This is unfinished business, Barkha. 47 POJK unfinished business, and chicken's neck unfinished business of 1971. We need to do that ASAP. Barkha.
Let me bring in General Dua to respond to that, both on the question of unfinished business, but also of nuclear assets. Ambassador Mukherjee seems to think there's an inevitability to another, she didn't use that word, but she suggests it, that something is coming and this time it's going to be bigger. You still feel that Pakistan would not be crazed enough to do that. General Hasnain makes the point that it is not a rational entity. It doesn't think in a rational way. I want to give you a last word, and General Hasnain a closing comment after that. General
Uh, Master Mukherjee mentioned about going in for a refinery, and such strategic targets are are in the realm of being doable if there is a provocation that demands it. But to do the unfinished business of POK or taking out their strategic assets, the nuclear assets, that is something which is, it's a very decision at a very higher level, a national decision, whether we as military should do it. I mean, I leave it with the poser. I obviously cannot answer that. Whether we as a nation should do it. Sorry. Uh, uh, if the population of POK is approximately 52 or 53 lakhs, which is a little less than half of population of erstwhile JNK. I'm not sure about the figures now, so it would be roughly half when Ladakh is not the of half population of JNK. I'm sorry, I'm being very blunt. I'm not indulging in what the political statements are that we must take back POK. As a military man, someone who served in Kashmir, I would say if we take on POK, then what do we do with this segment of another a bit of a huge segment of adverse population, because no matter what the number of protests that we see, I know there is a sentiment which goes up and down. Nowadays, we are seeing protests, but will we really? What do we do thereafter? When take POK, that's a military task. What do we do thereafter? We'll have to administer it. We will have an adverse population. Nuclear assets. Recently, we saw, while Iran is not a declared nuclear state, but whatever nuclear assets they have, not as a threat, but nuclear assets they have, US tried to strike them. And we know the controversy it created, whether it was successful or not, and I'll not stand the discussion to go there. It is not, it's easier said than done. Take out the nuclear assets. Nuclear assets are far deep into the ground. There are different safeguards, there are protocols in all the 9 countries that have nuclear assets. It is not easy for any country to say we can take out the nuclear assets. Might look any work. Thank you.
So General Dua there is sounding the note of sort of pragmatism, that as you know, for the military that actually has to pursue goals that may be set by the political establishment. And once again, there's a message in our audience. Good messaging, Barkha. Salute in particular to the generals. Please ignore the Pakistani trolls in the audience. They're burning electricity they don't have. I wanted to just read that out just for a smile. But I think, General Hasnain, there's a point, truth as always lies between the sentiment of Ambassador Mukherjee, which is something that, you know, everybody will agree with his sentiment, and the practicality that General Dua is bringing as the sort of person or the entity that has to actually pursue these goals. I'm sure the truth lies somewhere in the middle. I think Pakistan, if it doesn't provoke India, if it actually sticks to its own business, doesn't, you know, abandons its policy of terrorism, you know, maybe we all carry on like this. And the unfinished business also gets postponed down the road, is what I would imagine. But as you say, it is not a rational player. So I want you to weigh in between the sentiment expressed by Ambassador Mukherjee, which is a sentiment, and the practicality sounded by General Dua, because let's remember, even the Americans have not been able to finish Iran's nuclear program, for example. It has just gone underground. And there is always that possibility. Pakistan's nuclear program also started exactly like that. So last word to you.
So I'm in the best position to sum up, I think, yes. Right? And I fully agree with both my fellow panelists. I agree with Ambassador Bashwati Mukherjee because she expresses the populist opinion of India, and that is what every Indian will desire. I would definitely desire that. But I'm pragmatic, and General Dua and I come from the military field where we look at capability. We always look at capability, right? And he and I have both commanded the same organization, the organization which leads the front always, right? To that extent, I'll say on POJK, it's not just a question of POJK, it's a question of Gilgit-Baltistan too. Remember, it's a POJK consists the entire territory, and that brings in China. That's an issue today because of the foreign presence there, because of the China-Pakistan economic corridor, etc. It's a hugely complex issue, and therefore I would definitely not want to get into it militarily at this stage, when we are, when we have adversaries all around us at this moment. The situation not too good in balance as far as we are concerned. I would wait for a good day, and therefore I would work on it and make sure that why can't POJK fall into my hands with a non-military route? Why should the military route always be the only option, right? So that's one aspect. The second thing is, I tend to agree with Gen Satish Dua that you have to, when it comes to nuclear assets, you have to look at capability, you have to look at response, both aspects to it. Capability-wise, even the Americans, I'm not sure that they have destroyed what they were looking for to destroy in as far as Iran is concerned.
That's what I said.
Post-damage assessment, post-damage assessment doesn't tell us in any confirmed way. Yeah. And therefore, one shot into Kirana Hills or two shots into Kirana Hills does not mean the destruction of Pakistan's nuclear assets. So we should be careful about that. Desire definitely is there that this area, the complete subcontinent, should be nuclear free. Definitely, we are all for it, and we would definitely want to work towards that. My last word on NFU, no first use. That's a self-declaration by India. And I think it works to our advantage to a great extent diplomatically. But having said that, NFU being self-declared doesn't mean that you cannot use it if the chips are down and the last option is only to use it. And that option you have got available with you. That's under war conditions. But all the while, the war conditions are not going to exist all the time. But most of the time, you'll have peacetime and you'll use diplomacy. For diplomacy, NFU is far better than a declared policy.
Okay, we've had three very nuanced, very experienced perspectives there, really covering the gamut from sentiment, desire of a country to definitely aim higher, hit harder if the provocation should come, but also a note of practical contextualization from the men who actually have to go to battle, and I think we really appreciate that. And between sentiment and that pragmatism, politics will find its own path. I think at this point we can only say that if Pakistan has a semblance of self-interest left, it will not seek to provoke India again. But I think history teaches us that Pakistan does not always think in that manner, and therefore we prepare as a country, as our generals have said, always for war in the pursuit of peace. Thank you very much, Ambassador Mukherjee, General Dua, General Hasnain. Always a pleasure. Thank you. See you all soon. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.